Well, Donald Trump set the UN on fire this week. He voiced his frustrations at nations, including ours, over a declaration of a Palestinian state, and then didn't hold back when it came to climate change.
Years ago in the 1920s and the 1930s, they said, global cooling will kill the world. We have to do something. Then they said global warming will kill the world, but then it started getting cooler, so now they could just call it climate change, because that way they can't miss. It's climate change, because if it goes higher or lower, whatever the hell happens, there's climate change. It's the greatest con job ever perpetrated on the world, in my opinion.
Well, let's bring in our Friday morning panel, the National Senate Leader Bridget McKenzie and the Independent MP Zali Steggall. Good morning to you both. Bridget, to you first here. How aligned are we now with our great ally, the US?
I think it's clear that the President of the United States is both a sceptic on climate change and a sceptic with how good the United Nations is. But the reality is, and Zali will argue this, but the reality is the EU is walking back aggressive climate change targets as the reality of rolling those policies out hurt their citizens. And we see even this morning them stopping the deforestation plans for another 12 months, which is good news. You've got countries outsourcing their emission profile to China, along with a lot of jobs. And you see how the United Nations is an empty platform when we saw the recognition of the Palestinian state last week. No hostages returned, Hamas has not given up their guns, and there is no peace in the Middle East. So, whilst President Trump's spray will upset a lot of people, there were absolutely kernels of truth in his speech.
Hey, do you think it's a con job?
Sorry, do I think what's a con job?
Do you think that the climate crisis is a con job, as Donald Trump referred to?
Well, I've always said that net zero by 2050 was never going to be net zero cost. Someone will have to pay, and we needed to have an honest, upfront, data-driven debate about who that was and what would be the social, economic and environmental costs. And to this day, we have not had that conversation. There'll be a lot of emotion about the climate crisis, and there will be no respectful, honest debate about what the cost is. Chris Bowen still is refusing to tell the Australian people how much it'll cost us, and it's my communities right now that are living with the renewable rollout, and I'd love Zali to do the right thing, put a few wind towers up like the environmental group in her own community suggested a few months ago.
Well, I mean, that's not going to happen off Manly. That's not going to happen off Manly, is it, Zali?
Look, let's start at the top.
We've all got to share. We've got to share. We've got to share the burden, don't we, Zali?
Look, we can either have a sensible, reasonable discussion, or we can have a stupid one. The reality is you've got America completely ceding the place to China when it comes to the post-fossil fuel world and an electrified state. We're seeing them roll out wind and solar at a pace, and they will have incredible dominance around the world. They will also gain them a lot of geopolitical power, especially in our region in the Pacific, where nations are experiencing climate change from an existential point of view. So it's really concerning to see the US cede that leadership, global leadership place in an issue that is so important. Keeping in mind, Donald Trump is someone who advocated for people to drink bleach to deal with COVID. So, again, I would suspend acceptance of his views when it comes to science and facts. Now, in relation to what Bridget just said around her communities, the reality is the costs that the Coalition and the Nationals never speak about is the cost of warming to their communities. We saw with the National Climate Risk Assessment that the cost to regional communities in loss of production from farming, from food production, is going to be huge. Communities on the ground are paying for this. Their insurance premiums show in a very real way what the cost of climate change is. And so the question when we talk about what the cost of action is It is not a net zero sum game. It is not like there's a cost of transition and there's no cost on the other side. There is a cost of not acting.
Just on that point, Zali, I mean, China is by far the biggest emitter in the world. Isn't it true that whatever change we make here won't make any difference to global emissions?
Well, that is actually not correct. On a per capita
when we're only at 1%, right?
No, that is not. We are responsible for up to 10%. If you count our exports and our influence globally with our trading partners, we are up to 10% of global emissions. So we have a disproportionate capacity to move the world and move our allies and trading partners towards cleaner, low-emission technologies. That requires political courage and acknowledging the risks and the reasons, the why we need to do this. Now, China on a per capita basis, so per individual person in the country, is not a high emitter because they were for a long time still developing.
China is the highest emitter in the world, Zali. So,
because they are the most populated.
And it says it's...
You can't ignore the size of a population.
But that's just what it is.
No. On an individual basis, if you look at our standard of living...
China. Zali?
I am not. I am actually trying to ensure Australia is safe in a future-proof world where we don't have the dominance of China when it comes to an electrified state. We have the denial from the conservative side of politics, whilst ordinary Australians are paying the price for delay and denial. They are paying on the ground through insurance premiums, through loss of their homes when disasters strike, and that is only going to get worse. Putting your head in the sand does not change this problem.
Well, let's get your response to that, Bridget. I mean, it was just interesting from Xi Jinping this week, who said that China is putting on a lot of renewables, that's for sure, but it's still putting on coal, it's still putting on extra coal more than anybody else is. And it says that it will reduce its 2035 targets by just 7 and 10% off its peak levels. And it hasn't even peaked yet. So, I mean, it's kind of mealy-mouthed stuff, isn't it?
They've peaked early. They have already peaked and have started reducing. So that is not correct.
Bridget, did you want to respond to that?
Pete, I have huge concern. Yeah, I have huge concerns about China not pulling their weight when it comes to emissions reduction. Zali talks a big game, but she's not prepared to actually front up, put her community to the shoulder to the wheel when it comes to lowering emissions in this country. Even in my own portfolio of transport, Pete, the Labor Party's 2035 plan wants to see us increase our EV purchases by 6 million new cars by 2035 and to tax those in the suburbs, those in the regions who need to buy and can afford petrol and diesel cars. That's actually what's going to happen. And meanwhile, hardworking Australians are going to be subsidising those who can afford EVs to the tune of 50% with fringe benefit tax benefits over the next decade. So Zali can talk a passionate set of talking points about caring for the planet and kumbaya. The reality is people are hurting right now because of the policies. Why the EU is walking their aggressive targets back is because it's costing people their lives and livelihoods. And in a democracy, that's not good policy and it's not good politics.
Bridget and Zali, we will have to leave it there. Appreciate your time, though. Good discussion, as always. We'll talk to you again next week.